Okay, so let's get some budgets squeezed into the Brexit calendar without looking at the final weeks of October to October 31st, the final days, technically speaking. But the UK Chancellor of Exchequer is trying to sidestep the Brexit chaos and put in the budget for November the 6th, the morning after the October 31st deadline. How will it work out? Let me ask Juliana Olayinka, my colleague, who's joining us via Skype from London there. Thank you, Juliana. How will it work, by the way, trying to push the budget ahead of the Brexit deadline? What is the Chancellor of the Exchequer trying to achieve here?
Good morning, Bosun. Behind the scenes in the London studio. Well, look, you know, Sajid Javid has given us a date for his budget. He's calling it the post-Brexit budget because he seems to think, and his government seems to think, that a Brexit deal can be arisen from the ashes before November the 6th. And of course, as to be expected, it's faced a lot of criticism. We've had the Scottish National Party leader, Nicola Sturgeon. She was giving a talk on radio this morning, and she says, you know, it seems as if the Conservative government are just going along doing things as they seem fit before November the 6th. There's just so much to happen. In the next hour, we're expecting the Queen's speech. The Queen will be delivering a speech to Parliament, basically laying out domestic legislation, which the Conservatives believe they will be able to pass through Commons over the next couple of months. Within the Queen's speech, she will also be laying out and addressing some of the legislation that will be put into the withdrawal agreement. And I know we have been discussing this over the past couple of weeks, Bosun, but this week really is the do or die week for a Brexit deal. We have a summit, the EU, the crucial EU summit on Thursday and Friday, which Boris Johnson will be attending. And there are people that are hoping a deal can be resurrected. There is no deal at the moment. There was a sense of optimism on Thursday when Prime Minister Boris Johnson met with the Irish leader, Leo Varadkar. They said that they did see a pathway to Brexit. But over the weekend, the EU chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, said that these intense negotiation discussions has led to nothing. So, you know, the Commons are going to be exceptionally busy. We did have protesters on the streets of London over the past couple of days, but they've been completely cleared. So the Queen has a safe journey to Parliament. So, yes, there is a budget date, but before we get to November the 6th, we have to get through what British lawmakers are calling a super week in Parliament.
Okay. Quite a lot to talk about there, but I've got this nationalization plan by the Labour Party in my crosshairs, close to £200 billion. Despite the Brexit, the Labour Party still believe they have something fantastic to offer. Do you have any idea what is in this nationalization plan? In about a minute, can you give us a summary? If there is any devil in the details, let us know as well.
Gosh, when it comes to politics, the devil is always in the detail, isn't it? Which is why most of us avoid the detail. But look, you know, under Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party have gone exceptionally left, which has won him some support in some corners. But when it comes to business leaders, they're not accepting it or having it. Under Jeremy Corbyn, he has said that he plans to nationalise some of the industries in this country that are making the most money, but seem to give care less towards their customers. So this includes the water utilities market, the energy market, trains, which we've seen extortionate rail prices over the past couple of years. He says if he, you know, was to be back in government, he would nationalise them. And there's been a group of leaders who just this morning have said, you know, that it's absolutely ridiculous. And that if he did plan to nationalise Royal Mail and the train line and these energy firms, it would cost the taxpayer to the tune of £200 billion, which is completely extraordinary. There are lots of details within his plan, which we could discuss later. But yes. Labour said that there's lots of scaremongering, and you know, it's good for the people, not necessarily the shareholders, who are the ones who are complaining about it the most.
Juliana, you're the one who live in London. So if it's good for you, if you say it's good, that's fine. But I hear taxpayers' money. Taxpayers are going to cough out some quite a billions of dollars, then I get a bit of a pushback there. So you folks find a way to sort it out. Let's have more of that details in the afternoon, shall we? Very importantly, let's listen to the Queen, Her Majesty herself, the Parliament later today. I'm sure that will be a must-watch broadcast for everyone. She's speaking for the first time in months as far as the Brexit is concerned. Thank you, Juliana. It's good to have you on the program this morning here on Business Morning. She'll be back at 1:30 for Business Incorporated. So let's check in with the stock market. MTN Nigeria making notice this morning. The close period is today. Board of Directors meeting Tuesday, October the 26th, or 29th, I beg your pardon. Let me get that straight. 29th, the last Tuesday of the month. So let's get Temple Ashaju into this conversation. Go ahead, Temple.
Yes, boss, and that's true. I mean, the meeting has been scheduled for the 29th of October, beginning with the fact that the close period begins today. Close periods means from this moment up until 24 hours after the meeting, the EDs and, of course, directors generally on the board of that company cannot transact on the shares of MTN anymore. Ditto for Forte Oil, which begins its own close period on 15th of October, that is tomorrow. And, of course, all of these close periods and the meetings are basically in line with the rule book of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, which is Rule 17, subsection 18, I think, of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So basically, investors will only continue to watch this space. In recent time, we've seen MTN, trading around 130 naira. At a point, we saw a cross deal sometimes in November. We saw a huge cross deal of some billions of naira, over 1 billion naira, but that didn't really create any impact. So that disappointed some investors that period when it was trading around 139.40 naira. They sold off, and so the share price came back to 130 naira. We saw something similar to that again before it hit 130 naira, but I mean that didn't create any positive impact. I think investors are really waiting for MTN to come up with its IPO, and of course they're waiting to see how they will float the commercial paper, which are the two key things that investors are really watching that space for. And so investors will continue to watch that's the share price of this particular company, and wait seriously, significantly for the meeting, the outcome of the meeting, which will be released on possibly on the 30th of October or 1st of November or thereabouts, Bosun.
To watch within the final weeks of 2019 is going to be MTN. I'm sure you know that. Again, this is going to be 9 months. This will encompass the listing period for MTN Nigeria, and this will be the new board of directors meeting, as it were. So I'm sure everyone is watching this 9 months earnings from MTN Nigeria.
Yes, Bosun. I mean, this is something that will help investors to now bet more on this particular stock because, as it were, when it got listed in May this year, there wasn't so much room for secondary market players, to get involved in the share price of MTN. So the 20% floating rule was something that just wasn't so accommodative enough for a lot of traders and, of course, a lot of investors. So basically, when we see this rejigging eventually, which probably is the reason why we are seeing this cross dealings in recent times, that will now change the perceptions of a lot of investors about MTN going forward.
All right. Thank you, Temple Ashaju, from the business correspondent from the NSE trading floor. Let's move forward. The final minutes of the show. Let's talk to Gbenga Shonaike, who is a fixed income dealer at Access Bank, live to us from FMDQ Exchange Place in downtown Lagos. Tee off the fixed income week for us, Gbenga, as we expect quite a number of data this week. On top of that pile is the September inflation and CPI numbers, which we're now looking forward to likely happen tomorrow, Tuesday.
Okay, to be honest, we don't see any much major detraction from the last CPI figure. So for us, we'll see that fixed income market will be relatively stable from last week. On the bond side, we don't see any much interference. It has been pretty much stable for the past 2 months. That won't change. We are seeing a lot of players play within the shorter end of the curve. That's the T-bill space, where we are seeing the home auctions being done. We have a PMA this week where CBN is offering about over 120 billion. So that's where the party is going to be at this week. Not much changes. We still expect yields to, discount rates to be about slightly above 13%. Hopefully at the home auctions and the PMA, we'll see where that comes out. But that will probably show more direction on the weeks to come, more than the CPI inflation figures, because we don't see much happening there. It might well be a slight uptick or downtick, depending on which base. We're seeing higher base being used for the calculation this time around, but we just see maybe a slight uptick, but that shouldn't change much.
Okay, thank you very much for raising the curtain for us on the fixed income side for the week. Thank you so much, Benga Shonaike, fixed income dealer
Thank
at
you.
Access Bank. Thank you so much from FMDQ Exchange Place. And, well, to wrap it up, it's not looking like a good Monday yet, at least on the global oil market. Oil prices now falling through the roof. The U.S. oil is now down 2.12%, and your Brent crude, of which will tie Nigeria's budget, is now down 2.23%. And that's starting Monday. What a nasty way to start it. But let's go home, everyone. Oh, no, we're not going home. We'll continue here on Business Incorporated in the afternoon and here on Channels Television, where news never sleeps.